Well, hello, this is Barry Phillips with Reconnect. Thank you for joining me for another episode. If I could title this episode, I would probably call it something like Being Unhappy with Those Who Are Still Happy. I'll explain more about that here in just a moment. Reconnect is a call to those who feel cut off and abandoned and disconnected from whatever religious, spiritual system that you may have found yourself a part of in the past. You're out there by yourself and looking for a place to fit back in and don't know how to do that. So hopefully this program will give you some steps to take and some help and also hopefully some encouragement. So I don't want you feeling totally abandoned and thinking that there's no one else out there like you. There are plenty of us, and we're all on this journey together. I had been reminded and asked again for contact information. If you'd like to reach me for questions and comments and responses to our teaching, best place is remnantofisrael.com. Israel is spelled Yisrael, remnantofisrael.com, and there is a place for contact there. And that'll send you to me via email. I also have a blog that is available, and the blog is written especially for you, for those that are on this journey together. The blog site is thereturning.net, and I'd appreciate you going by and checking out those sites. Try to keep those updated as much as possible, and appreciate also your responses to anything that you might find there. So what is this thing about being unhappy with those who are still happy? Well, let's put this in the form of a question. What do you do with those who are happy or content or even excited about what you have left behind? You left out of frustration, and maybe you even found error in some of the things that you walked away from. But there are folks still there and happy to be there. And when you see them, they're still happy. They're smiling and rejoicing over whatever they think has taken place in recent memory, and they want to brag about growth and new souls being won and revival fervor or new events, etc. And you're thinking to yourself, if you only knew what I knew. And sometimes we open our mouths and let them know what we think we know. Especially this time of year, with all those holiday greetings for a holiday that many of us have realized means nothing, or we have determined it is a pagan ritual that we should avoid altogether. Personally, my family and I have not celebrated Christmas for over 15 years. But during that time, for many of those years, I worked in retail sales at a local place of business. And when November came along, sometime around the end of the Thanksgiving season, I began to hear Christmas, Christmas, Christmas. And at some point over those years, I was branded as a Scrooge. My employer would laugh and look at me and say, "Oh, bah humbug, you need to get over it." Well, not only do I not celebrate Christmas, I have a personal angst about the holiday, don't care for the holiday, have some serious issues pertaining to it, and I just dreaded the season. I could not wait for the season to be over. So invariably someone would make a purchase and they would wish me Merry Christmas, and I struggled to come up with a response. What do you say to someone who's happy and excited about something that you yourself feel disdain and even distaste, disgust for? Finally, I kind of moderated to a line of, I appreciate it. Now, what I wanted to say and what I almost would say was to borrow a line from the movie Home Alone that came out many years ago, where there is, in the character's portrayal of, he's receiving a pizza and he plays a clip from an old black and white film. So when people said, Merry Christmas to me, what I wanted to respond was, Merry Christmas, you filthy pagan. Well, that wouldn't have helped me a lot and probably run off a few customers offended and cost me my job. So I bit my tongue and kept my comments to myself. That was good advice. But I eventually began to respond by, I appreciate your business. Well, that left him with crossed eyes and trying to figure out, I just said Merry Christmas, and he says, thank you for your business. The two are not related. I moderated that to, I appreciate it. And I do. I appreciate their sentiment. I appreciate the fact that they want me to have an enjoyable day, an enjoyable holiday family experience. I can appreciate that. I don't have to embrace it, but I can appreciate the sentiment. So that was about as far as I could take it and still feel okay about myself. Well, that's Christmas, but what about the rest of the year? As long as people are happy or they're thrilled over what they're experiencing, if they're happy sitting on the system's pew, amening the pastor in the pulpit, being a part of that crowd, then there's not a whole lot that you can do or that you can say for the time being. Now, we all know things change. Things do not remain as they are now, and they're going to change. Circumstances in our society and our community, they're going to change. Things happen inside churches. They happen in the broad of our national society. Something's going to move. People are going to determine some questions. And just like you got stirred up over something after a period of acceptance and embracing what you came out of, something moved on you, something stirred you, and you started this journey. Well, you have to give opportunity for that to take place honestly in someone else's life without necessarily you being the instigator. That means that you and I can quietly pray and cry out to Him to open the eyes of those who are still where we were and to cause them to be stirred if they have the ability to be stirred. Now, Yeshua often said, he who has ears to hear what the Spirit is saying, let him hear. So if someone has a heart or an ear to hear what the Spirit is saying, that eventually they're going to hear that stirring, that moving, that challenging that will come along and stir them up just like it did you. Our responsibility at that point is not to look at them and say, I told you so, but to give them encouragement and hope and prayer and a willingness to come alongside them and just be there for them and let them spew, let them vent, let them, get it out of their system, but at the same time, help them to understand there is a journey that has just started for you. I'm on it. I can help, and I'm available. Now, if we destabilize them, let's use that word, if they're stable in their church environment or their religious environment, and you try to destabilize them outside of the stirring and the enabling of the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, then we may actually do more harm than good. What I mean is that we're not allowed to make this a personal issue or to take the issues personally. If we air our grievances towards someone who is not also grieved, then what we've done, or the only thing we have accomplished, is alienate ourselves, and we have created a defensive adversary. If they're content and happy and thrilled about where they are and what's happening, and they think that they're growing, leave them alone. Pray for them, love them, model the different life in front of them. but don't try to poke and prod and create an argumentative environment that's not going to help anything. They're only going to passionately stand up and defend what they believe to be right. Now, if they approach you and they're asking questions, if they're challenging you, take it easy. Don't take it personal. Don't get your feathers in an uproar. Just answer the question and smile a lot. It's kind of hard to be angry with somebody when they're smiling at you. And I'm not talking about that contemptuous smile where you smirk at them. Hey, I've done that. But a genuine, heartfelt smile. Be polite. So after learning of the suspect origins of Christmas, I went home. This would have been about 2001. I went home to my family's celebration of Thanksgiving that year. And when they were ready to draw names for exchanging of gifts for the next holiday, I had everyone to sit down in the living room, and this would have been a large family of about 15 or so at the moment. And I said, I need to share something with you before you draw names. So I went into a fully launched campaign of details about all the pagan origins of Christmas practices, about the tree and the holly and the wreaths and the gold balls and the whole deal. And, you know, I was quick to inform them Messiah's not been born on this day, and it was the sun god's birth. It was Mithra's birth from Romanism, and on and on and on I went. And I said, as for me and my house, we will never celebrate Christmas again. So don't put our names in the drawing. Well, as you can imagine, that didn't go over well. And it didn't win me any popularity contest. And it really just produced a divisive effect. To this day, now I have a loving and strong family, a solid home that I was raised in, siblings and brothers, sister-in-laws that we get along and do extremely well. But it's still to this day a little awkward and sometimes problematic when it comes to Christmas. So I burned a bridge, and that one's been tough. I don't recommend using my methodology. There must be a better way. And I really, to be honest with you, I can't advise you as to the sweetest, most innocent way to get across your message. All I know is what I did is probably not what I would do if I had to do this over again. I would try to find a little different way. But once you burn a bridge, it's very, very hard to build another. Once you are pegged as being an angry person who vents and rails against the church or its pastors or its professional clergy or holidays, ultimately people are going to begin to avoid you, and they're not going to listen to you. They're going to see you coming, and they're going to shut the windows, the doors, and they're going to tune you out. So when people are happy in their system that was destroying you, you may feel the need to try to rescue them, and you may want to be their hero. But I have to ask this question: what if they don't want to be rescued? You only draw a line of division and end up an angry misfit in their estimation. There is a better way. Now, I want to share some things that I think are practical, hopefully helpful, and things that I have learned over the years that if you're in this situation, this might prove to your benefit. So here we go. First of all, let's remember that Yeshua came preaching with parables. Now, when he told the stories, some part of the crowd, they heard a story and they were merely entertained. Others heard life principles that were included, and they were, some means challenged to improve their lifestyle. But there was a small remnant, a small select group who heard in the stories the news of the kingdom, and when they pursued that, when they pressed further, ultimately they became renewed, born again. And later, these same individuals were those, it was said of them, that they turned the world upside down. Everybody in your audience, whether it's a coworker, family member, a neighbor, someone you meet, a former acquaintance somewhere, you don't know what their reaction's going to be. Again, now, if they come asking you questions, I haven't seen you in church for a while, what's going on? You may have this urge, well, let me just tell you. And you may want to, as I used to call it, throw up on them. You just want to spill everything you know all at one time on top of them. Resist the urge. It's not going to help. If they're asking, where have you been? Just tell them, I've been studying on my own. I'm trying something different for a little while. If you're interested, I'd like to share with you what I'm finding. Put the ball back in their court. Give them a chance to pursue you. Then after that, you need to, if you share something with someone, I'm trying to be careful here, and they start this journey as a result, and this is very important. You share a nugget, you share a thought, they pursue you, they start down this journey, then you have a responsibility, you do, now to teach them a little at a time until they become mature and capable of repeating the process. And remember, this is extremely important. This is a process. Folks are not going to get from where they are to where you are sitting at their table in their living room or in their kitchen with a single pot of coffee and, you're going to give it to them all in one night. It's not going to happen. Here is a very important key that I found, and it works. It's worked for me. It's worked for those that I personally have groomed and shared with and discipled. When you have an opportunity, an open door presents itself, and you can share a little bit with someone, share a thought, give them one little nugget, one. Seize the moment, share the thought, give a little bit of it, and here's the important part. Hush. Bite your lip, smile, walk away, let the subject change, leave it alone. When the Ruach, when the Holy Spirit says that's enough, shh, listen to it and resist that urge to show off your insight and your knowledge. Now, it's burning inside of us. We want it to just explode, and we want to help people. We get excited, and we want to tell them everything that we've gleaned and learned and how we're processing. Be easy. Be real easy. And understand that their perspective and their paradigm has not shifted yet. They're only beginning to question or to probe or to put out the feelers. Maybe they've just began to ask the question, is this all that there is? And that is a question that I've heard a response from everywhere I've ever gone. When I find myself in front of a new group, I ask them, how many of you started out this journey with the question, is this all that there is? And the vast majority of every audience has raised their hand and said, I asked that question. I think that is a question from the Ruach, from the Holy Spirit. Now, if you're sitting at home and you're part of that wounded crowd and you don't know what you need to do, begin to ask. Now, if there's not someone that you know that can teach you, someone who's been where you are and they've moved on, if you don't know such a person, begin to cry out to your Father and ask Him to teach you and to show you what your next steps are. And please, by all means, contact me. I'll do my very best to help you. Listen again to the program, and we'll continue to try to share some things that may be of interest and help to you. But don't give up and don't quit altogether. Now, if you have gotten somewhere and you began to gain some insight and some understanding, if you give someone too much information to chew on, they'll choke. I had an individual, again, in the place of business where I was working. We sold musical instruments and PA equipment and musical accessory merchandise. And this guy would come in, and he was all pumped up and excited about his church. And he was the praise and worship leader, and he would come in very excited and singing one of the songs and reaching out and touching you on the shoulder and grinning real big. Hi, brother, And I'd smile and say, hey, how you doing? What's going on? And, just trying to turn it to a music merchandise question, engage in a conversation that was out of that realm altogether. And then try to find an opportunity. And I remember I shared a nugget or two with him, and he kind of looked at me strange, and I heard the Ruach say to me, shh, hush. That process continued over a long period of time, and I finally said, if you'd like to know more, I'll be glad to come down to your house and sit down with you and your wife and answer any questions that you might have. That process led to several years of sitting in his home with a large group of people and teaching them the Torah at a kitchen table. Out of that, House of David, where I teach, was built and encouraged and enlarged, and that friendship, that relationship continues to this day. I had an opportunity to choke somebody, but I learned to listen when the Ruach said, shut up and be quiet. That's enough to bite my lip and change the subject. Listen, when their hunger grows, you will grow through learning to patiently teach and develop the heart and the passion of Yeshua. One at a time, one step at a time with them, you will begin to build his kingdom. This isn't about us. This is not about affirmation or being validated about what we say that we believe. This isn't to prove us right. We need to get the chips off of our shoulders. We need to lay down the angst that we still carry against whatever the organization or the individuals in our past that wounded us or caused us problems. Get that off of you. That's not going to help you. There's a period of time to be angry and to be mad, but then we need to get over it. Where we are at right now is to recognize that the vast majority of the harvest is untouched. They don't know or have a clue about who they really are. For the house of Israel, most of the house of Israel is still sitting in a religious system somewhere, frustrated, looking at the ceiling and counting the minutes till the thing is over, and they're beginning to hear that anointed question of the Holy Spirit, of the Ruach HaKodesh, is this all that there is? When they ask that question and when they come searching, it's key that you and I have lived such a life and such a walk in front of them that they can trust that you and I may have an answer and come to us. This journey is just starting, and we're going to keep on it. This is Barry Phillips with Reconnect. Hope you've enjoyed this. We'll be back again next week. Shalom.
we are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network. The teachings and music on Messianic Lamb Radio are made available by the generous donations of listeners like you. Thank you.
Yeah, but can you tell the difference between a winner and a loser? Between the righteous and unrighteous? Huh? Can you?
Boy, sometimes no. Sometimes the lines are pretty blurred. I wish I was as knowledgeable and as insightful that I could. You know, we follow different people and different teachings throughout our life, and only to come up short and disappointed too many times. You know, how many times did you change your mind going through Christianity and the different denominations, and then into messianics, and from one teacher to another, and even listen to Lamb Radio. I mean, that's one of the great things about Mark, is he has different perspectives, and you can get a smidgen of this and a smattling of that, and
right. And a bicar, baby, even if you need it or not.
Yeah.
It's a giant hodgepodge of everything.
Yeah. Well,
I have an Alka-Seltzer commercial. Flop, flop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what do we need to do?
Don't go away. Your show will start after a brief pause.